everyone, and welcome to the next installment of making a bridal gown. So last time we did all our adjustments after the bride had fitted the muslin. We altered the front pieces, the back, the skirt. We've lowered it. We've made the neckline quite a bit lower and made it a little bit more to her liking. So it's a very fitted dress. It's very beachy. It's got this mini skirt and then lace on top. So we've added our seam allowances to all of our pieces, and we did all those adjustments last time. Now we're ready to actually cut out the material with the pattern pieces. So this is the material I've chosen for the main underlay of the dress, which is a nice stretch satin that's going to look and work really well for the fitted style of the dress. So it's going to fit close to the body. She's still going to be able to move, and the skirt can be as tight as she wants it, but yet it's still going to be lined, and even the lining has a bit of a stretch in it too. So these are all the skirt pieces, the front and back there with the darts, and some of the front bodice pieces as well. I did cut out the straps, but we don't actually get to that part in this video, so that will be probably in the next one. So we're just cutting out all the pieces here, lining them up, making sure they're on grain, and I'm using my handy dandy rotary cutter, which makes cutting out these things so much easier rather than having to pin everything. So I like to use my grid mat to lay out the fabric to make sure everything is perfectly aligned. For the dart, it's a little trickier. There are holes in the pattern, and I've just gone and put a pin through the hole, and then I'm doing a pencil marking on both sides so that I can see that point to the dart. And this is the back piece that we altered, as well as some of the front. So there's a side front, a center front, and then a center back piece, which is a very low back, so it's a very, very small piece. You can see it says there center back, pointing to the arrow where it meets the center back. So it's going to be pretty much completely open and very sexy. It's a very sexy dress, I think, but it suits her really well, so I'm excited to get this going. And here I'm doing the same thing. I'm snipping my little notches, putting that pin through the dart point there, and I will probably make a marking for that later. So I'm just gonna continue cutting out the remaining pieces, and the next stage will be starting to piece them all together, which is probably my favorite stage of garment making, is seeing all these separate pattern pieces and fabric just come together in one full garment. If you ever question your grain line placement, you can use a grid ruler or a regular ruler and place it on the grain line there and measure to either your selvage edge or your fold of your fabric, and make sure they're the same distance from the grain line. The next stage here is making all those stay stitchings along your neckline and any curve. I'm just doing a really short stitch at about 1/4 inch around the neckline, just to hold it into shape, make sure there's going to be no stretching on those curved seams and things that are going to be moving around a lot, which is very helpful. And also I'm going to start doing the princess seam here. See, I'm matching up my notches from those on the bust point. After stitching those seams, also on the lining as well, you want to trim that to a nice 1/4 inch seam and do some clipping around the curve so that it lays nice and flat. You're going to give it a nice good press using your tailor's ham. I use it in various positions to get it as flat as possible without over pressing it and getting some of that stretched out wrinkleness to it. You don't want to over press these things. You want to do it nice and gently. And check what you're doing on the other side as well. So the next part is finishing up the remaining of the bodice pieces. So that would be like the center back piece, our little small triangular back piece for that. We're gonna stitch that on both sides, and then we're gonna repeat the same process on the lining pieces as well. Once the lining is all done, I am choosing here to baste the lining to the top of the bodice because I am doing something a little different with this dress. Usually I would leave this part to the end, but I'm going to be doing a Venus piece or a facing that's going to go on top of the lining and get the neckline to hold its shape a little bit better and give it some structure. So this I feel safe enough to baste the neckline here. And since the princess seam kind of awkwardly goes up against the part of the bodice and the seam allowances aren't lying flat, I'm doing a little small clip to where the seam allowance, it's a little hard to tell now that I'm looking at this, but they weren't lying flat, and just doing a little clip helps that. And see, I've pinned it and it just looks much nicer and it gets rid of all that bulk. I've trimmed all the excess off. So now we're just gonna do that basting, and same amount, probably 1/4 inch, maybe an 1/8 below 1/2 inch, I guess. Just because I like to make sure that the basting, there's no chance that it will show through in the end. Otherwise I'd have to do a lot of removing of basting stitches. So now next up is the skirt, and we are starting off with the darts. Darts are pretty much the first thing that you learn, so I won't cover them too much, but they're just simple triangular darts, and I'm pressing them nicely to either the center or the side, depending on your preference. Center I like on the front pieces. I believe I did that. And now we're doing the side seam of the skirt, and this is all pretty much repeated again on the lining, so you'd be doing that right after you do this. Once again, give those seams a nice good press with a little bit of steam. Next here, I'm pretty much doing the same thing as the bodice. I'm taking those lining pieces and I'm basting it to the top of the skirt. This is probably going to be temporary because I might have to remove it a little bit at least for putting in the zipper in the back. I've left those seams open for now and waiting for that zipper to come in, which will have to account for the overlay that we're going to put on this dress. Well, here you have it. So this is as far as we've gotten so far. We've got a nice bodice started and a skirt, and here's a little preview of what the lace is going to look like. I'm very excited to do that part, which will be the next video on this series. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing.